Relationship. There are 3 brain rules here. Happy marriage, happy baby. The brain seeks safety above all, and what is obvious to you is obvious to you. I remember feeling almost completely overwhelmed when we brought our firstborn son, Joshua, home from the hospital. We placed our new baby in the car seat for the first time, praying that we were buckling him in correctly. I drove home from the hospital at a snail's pace. Miraculous for me. My wife was in the back seat just to keep an eye on things. So far, so good. When the little guy entered our house, his tiny face suddenly corrugated into annoyance. He started screaming. We changed his diaper. Still he screamed. My wife fed him. He took 1 or 2 gulps, then resumed screaming, tried to wiggle out of my wife's arms, tried to get away. This didn't happen in the hospital. Were we doing something wrong? I held him. My wife held him. Eventually he calmed down. Then he seemed to go to sleep. We were so relieved. We can do this, we kept telling ourselves. It was late, and we decided to follow his lead. No sooner did our heads hit the pillow than Joshua started crying again. My wife got up, fed him, then handed Josh to me. I burped him, changed him, laid him back down. He was calm and settled, and we went back to bed. I didn't even get to feel the warmth of the sheet before the crying and the screaming resumed. My wife was exhausted, recovering from a 21-hour labor, in no shape to help. I got up, held the baby, then set him back down into his crib. He calmed down. Success! I crept back to bed, and I got only as far as the pillow before the crying began again. I tucked my head under my blankets, hoping it would stop. It didn't. What was I supposed to do? This bewildering routine, and my reactions to them, recurred day after day. I had deep feelings for my son, always will, but I wondered at the time whatever made me decide to have a baby. I had no idea that something this wonderful was also going to be so hard. I learned a difficult but important lesson. Once a kid comes into the world, the calculus of daily living coughs up new equations. I am good at math, but I was no good at this. I had no idea how to solve these problems. For most new moms and dads, the first shock is the overwhelmingly relentless nature of this new social contract. The baby takes, the parent gives, end of story. What startles many couples is the excruciating toll it can take on their quality of life, especially their marriages. The baby cries, the baby sleeps, the baby vomits, gets held, needs changing, must be fed, all before 4 a.m. Then you have to go to work. Or maybe your spouse does. This is repeated day after ad nauseum day. Parents want just 1 square inch of silence, 1 small second to themselves, and they routinely get neither. You can't even go to the bathroom when you want. You're sleep deprived. You've lost friends. Your household chores just tripled. Your sex life is non-existent, and you barely have the energy to ask about each other's day. Is it any surprise that a couple's relationship suffers? It's rarely talked about, but it's a fact. Couples' hostile interactions sharply increase in the baby's first year. Sometimes the baby brings a hormone-soaked honeymoon period. One couple I know constantly quoted Tagore to each other. Every child comes with the message that God is not yet discouraged of man. Even then, things quickly deteriorate. The hostility can be so severe that, in some marriages, having a baby is actually a risk factor for divorce. Why do I bring this up in a book about baby brain development? Because it's serious for the baby's brain. We learned in the pregnancy chapter how exquisitely sensitive a baby in the womb is to outside stimuli. Once he leaves his comfortable, watery incubator, his brain becomes even more vulnerable. Sustained exposure to hostility can erode a baby's IQ and ability to handle stress, sometimes dramatically. An infant's need for caregiver stability is so strong, she will rewire her developing nervous system depending upon the turbulence she perceives. If you want your child to be equipped with the best brain possible, you need to know about this before you bring home your bundle of joy. When I lecture on the science of young brains, the dads, and it's almost always the dads, demand to know how to get their kids into Harvard. The question invariably angers me. I bellow, "You want to get your kid into Harvard? You really want to know what the data say? I'll tell you what the data say. Go home and love your wife." This chapter is about that retort. Why marital hostility happens, how it alters a baby's developing brain, and how you can counteract the hostility and minimize its effects.